Hi, I'm Mr. Kangas, and today we're going to take a look at Chapter 6, Section 5, Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. And in this video, we're going to go over how to change a decimal or fraction into a percent. Now, if you recall correctly about percents, they all mean out of 100. They're a number over 100. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how to change a decimal into a percent, because this is the simplest of the two. To turn a decimal into a percent, well, if we recall correctly, to change something like 10.5%, if we wanted to turn that into a decimal, we talked about how this means 10.5 out of 100, or in other words 10.5 divided by 100. And we also talked about how when you divide by 100, it does the opposite of multiplying by 100. Now, multiplying by 100 will move that decimal to the right two spaces. That's when you multiply by 100. Now, when we divide by 100, we're actually getting a smaller answer, and so it's going to do the opposite of multiplying. And our decimal, instead of moving to the right two spaces, will move to the left two spaces, and we get 0.105. So, in order to get the decimal for a percentage, we move that decimal point to the left two spaces. We move the decimal point of this number here to the left two spaces, because this percentage means divided by 100. And to divide by 100, you move left two spaces. So in other words, if we want to take this decimal and put it back into a percent, we're going to multiply it by 100, because to get the decimal, I had to divide by 100 to begin with. So to undo the dividing by 100, I will multiply by 100 to get my percent. So I'm going to say that one more time. To turn my percent into a decimal, I had to divide by 100. So in other words, move my decimal left two spaces. So if I want to do the opposite, if I want to undo my divide by 100 to get my decimal, I do the opposite, which is multiply by 100. So I would move my decimal right two spaces, and I would get my percent. So if someone gives you the decimal of 12.46 and they say, what is that as a percent? Multiply it by 100. Move that decimal right two spaces, and you can tell them it's 1,246%. If someone gives you the decimal of 0.04 and they say, what is that as a percent? Multiply it by 100. Move that decimal right two spaces, and you can tell them it's 4%. If someone gives you the decimal of 0.00168, multiply it by 100 and tell them by moving that decimal two spaces to the right, and then tell them that it is 0.168%. Okay. All you're doing is moving that decimal right two spaces, and that will turn your decimal into a percent. Okay? So to turn a percent into a decimal, you would divide by 100, because that's what the percentage sign means. It means divide by 100 or out of 100. So percent to decimal, you divide by 100. Decimal to percent, you multiply by 100. Okay. Fractions, if I have the fraction 2/5, okay, the best way to get a fraction into percentage form is to first turn the fraction into a decimal. So figure out what 2/5 is. You would do 2 divided by 5, okay? Which you would add your point zeros, put your decimal up here. 5 goes into 20 4 times. There's nothing left. Drop your 0. 5 goes into 0 0 times. So 2/5 is equal to 0.40. And like we said before, if you want to turn a decimal into a percent, you move the decimal over two spaces, and we would get 40%. So 2/5 is equal to 40%. Okay? So with fractions, it's very similar to decimals, just there's one extra step. Turn the fraction into a decimal, then move the decimal over two spaces, and you'll have your percent. So that is the easiest way that you can go through this process. The easiest way to convert a fraction into a percent. And it's really good to practice turning fractions into percents, because it also, at the same time, is having you practice turning decimals into percents. So that is all there is for this section. Like I said, if you're one of my students, Make sure you show all your work and ask me any questions if you need. Make sure you pause this video if you need to take notes. Rewatch it if you forget it. You can study this video for quizzes. And then you can tune in for the next video on Chapter 6, Section 6.